Since this channel was born out of the abyss of YouTube months ago, I have promised you that I will keep you updated on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell news. Well, we got some more Maxwell news. She's trying to get bail. She's trying to get out. Let's get into it. Ghislaine Maxwell has launched a $28.5 million bail bid that includes waiving her extradition rights and employing armed guards to protect her after receiving death threats, as her lawyer claimed she had been more ruthlessly vilified than the convicted sex offenders Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein. Did you do the same thing as them? No. Harvey Weinstein used his power to leverage sex favors from women. Bill Cosby drugged and raped women. What did you do? You got little girls. You got girls for little Jeffrey to rape them. I think that's worse. We're not talking about women. We're talking about young girls. And that is worse. So yes, you should be vilified more than Epstein and Cosby. Sorry. The British socialite, 58, is being detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn on charges that she helped procure girls as young as 14 for the late financier Jeffrey Epstein. Blah, blah, blah. Maxwell denies her charges. Her trial is scheduled to begin July 2021, and she faces up to 35 years in prison if convicted. New documents lodged with the U.S. District Court in Manhattan reveal Maxwell has been married since 2016, and proposed bail package partially consists of a $22.5 million personal recognizance bond secured by $8 million in property and $500,000 in cash, which, the paper said, represents all of Maxwell and her husband's assets, including 3 homes. Isn't it interesting how Maxwell has denied to say who her husband is? Because, that's not sketchy at all, right? Her husband is not named in the documents. The partially redacted court filing reveals that in 2016, Maxwell put the majority of her $20.2 million assets into a trust controlled by her spouse, which is now worth $20.02 million. To support the bail application, her lawyers included a letter from Maxwell's spouse. They said the letter told how she had been forced to leave her family and drop out of public view, not because she was evading law enforcement, but because of the intense media frenzy and threats following the arrest and death of Epstein at 66. Oh, poor girl. Don't you guys feel bad for her? Poor Maxwell. Epstein died in Manhattan. Died. He didn't kill himself, I know. Maxwell's lawyer said she maintained her innocence and she was committed to defending herself. They said that the media has ruthlessly vilified her in far more articles than have been written about Cosby and Weinstein after their arrests. If I was her lawyer, I wouldn't bring that up, because then you're opening the door for people to say, but Cosby and Epstein's victims weren't 14 years old. Were they? Bad move by the lawyers. One unnamed individual supporting the bail application wrote, her love for her husband was a principal reason that she stayed close by as possible while fighting for her innocence. When she moved, it was always and only due to fear of being discovered by the press or vigilantes. The fear was palpable. The only reason she was forced to find quiet places to be in all this time is due to the howling mob screaming for her scalp on Twitter and other social media outlets. I'm not screaming for her scalp, but when I see here that you're trying to make me feel bad for her, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told in my last video. Ain't no sympathy for Antifa, ain't no sympathy for Jeffrey Epstein, ain't no sympathy for Ghislaine Maxwell. She was denied bail in July after prosecutors argued she posed a substantial flight risk, saying she had opaque finances and citing transfer totaling more than $20 million from 2007 to 2011 back and forth between her and Epstein's account. That's not sketchy at all. Let's move on. This is my favorite part right here. A security specialist who is pledging $1 million towards the bail package and would provide armed security if Maxwell was released wrote that when the FBI approached to arrest her, she had retreated to her room because she feared reporters had found her. 7 close friends and family members also indicated they were willing to pledge $5 million of their own assets. Why is a security expert pledging $1 million support supposed to make me or the court think that Maxwell is not at flight risk? This is ridiculous. Of course she's at flight risk. Look at all this money. Look at all these rich people willing to give money up for her. That's flight risk. Since being held in custody, her lawyer said Maxwell has lost weight and suffered hair loss, been subject to repeated and invasive searches, and lacked adequate protection from coronavirus, which has affected 80 inmates and staff. Jail officials have said her health is good and she's treated like other inmates. Good. She didn't deserve no special treatment. Her bail application proposes she live under home confinement in New York City with an acquaintance with 24-hour security and electronic monitoring. By proposing to waive her extradition rights, she could not seek refuge in the UK or France, where she holds citizenship. And now, let's take a look at the loving letter that Ghislaine Maxwell's husband wrote for the bail. I have never witnessed anything close to inappropriate with Ghislaine, wrote CEO Scott Bergerson in the letter attached to the bail application. Quite to the contrary, the Ghislaine I know is a wonderful and loving person. Although Borgenson's name is redacted, it has been widely reported that he's her husband. In a desperate bid to get Maxwell sprung from federal lockup, Borgenson, 44, agreed to co-sign a $22.5 million bond that represents the couple's total assets. Then he goes on and explains it is hard to communicate in words the feeling of being stalked, spied upon, and tapped by constant 24/7 media intrusion. Wrote the divorced father of two, his children considered Maxwell their proxy mother and were shocked and heartbroken when she was arrested. And this brings me to this. When a woman found out that her father was a serial killer, it was a few months after the trip to the diner in March 1995 that my mother told us three kids that he had been arrested for murder. For murder! It was just overwhelming, and I ran to the bed, sleeping, and started crying. I couldn't fathom how my dad could have done such a thing. Which brings me back to Ghislaine Maxwell's stepkids. Who cares what they felt or that they were shocked? That doesn't mean anything. That shouldn't be in the bail application. The judge shouldn't give a shit about it. But I have a feeling she's actually going to get it. You know, it's about time. She's been locked out for 6 months. She knows a lot of secrets of a lot of powerful people. I think she's going to get the bail. She's going to go to New York City under surveillance for 24/7. And then she'll either die or disappear. But what do you guys think? Comment your opinions down below. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. See you next time.